It's the Arch Advocate Show for Tuesday, July 24th. Special guest today, future Congressman of the 12th District, Pennsylvania. That's Western Pennsylvania. Grant Kidney is our guest today. I'm very excited to bring this man to the show. And thank you once again, future Congressman. Had a lot of really good things to say. All right? I like where this guy's coming from, and I think that you're really going to appreciate this interview. But one thing that it makes me happy to be able to bring this to you is that as we move through these crazier times where we see absolute insanity going on in the political realm, and not just Congress people and senators and governors, but the head of the CIA, members of the FBI, former generals of the U.S. Army, like there's some very bizarre things being said and being done. And I believe that the reason why this has gotten so far out of hand is because we, the people, the American people, have forgotten, or maybe didn't know it from the beginning, about civics, how our government works, and what our place is. You have to keep in mind that these people are servants, right? They are servants. They are our butlers, right? Congressmen, senators, governors, presidents, heads of the CIA, heads of the FBI, all of those people in the armed forces. When I served, that's what I did. I served. I was a servant of the American people. And anybody who swears an oath, right? Anybody who takes on that kind of position, they are a servant. And who are they serving? You and me. Right? And when we see that there's a congresswoman in Florida who dresses like a rodeo clown, right? You have to stop and ask yourself, like, how did this happen? How is it that we got so far out of whack that this happened? When Maxine Waters doesn't even live in the district that she represents. And the district that she does represent is a complete third world shithole. And she lives in a $4 million mansion. How did this happen? Why is it that we still don't have term limits for Congress people? How did that happen? Well, because the Congress people voted that they didn't want it. It's like, hey, you are a servant. You work for me. Right? And I can fire you because you are my servant. But people have forgotten that. And I think that's the big component, what has lended to this absolute insanity. People trying to make America socialists. Allowing communists to run the CIA, having people that are either running for Congress who are in Congress or other equal positions or powerful positions that are saying, "Oh, I don't want borders." It's like, what? What are you talking about? "Oh, I just want everybody to come in." Like, what are you? Do you not have any sort of education about civics? Are you living in some fantasy world where there's some nation that you believe exists that doesn't have an immigration policy that says if we allow you to come into our country, you're here to help us become better. We're not letting you in here so that we can make you better. We're letting you in because we believe that you're here to help us get better. That's what immigration is in every nation on the planet. There is no benevolent immigration policy where it's like, oh, the poor guy, let's let him come in because we're rich. It's like, that's not our immigration policy. How is it that you as a congressperson doesn't know that? Or the vice governor of New York or whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever position of power. It's like, what book are you reading that leads you to believe that that's what's going on? Or that that's acceptable? It's like everybody's gone crazy, right? So I sit down, I talk with Grant Kidney, he sits down with me, and we have a blast of a conversation. And I hope this guy makes it in, but more than that, as we move forward, that you and I all become more familiar with just how much power that we have over these people, because we have it all. We have all the power. We are still a nation of laws, and our laws still work. Our vote still does count. I believe that. And I hope that you believe it too, and I hope that you enjoy this conversation. And afterwards, we're going to redress some of the things that we were talking about yesterday. I got even more messages from people that I trust on the topic of the shooting in Florida, which we were talking about, and I think that it all kind of ties in as to what are we going to do as Americans and as citizens of the Western world moving forward. Because the craziness isn't just happening in the United States. You've got Tommy Robinson locked up in the UK. You've got Angela Merkel who is right now importing people who are not coming to Germany to make Germany better. They're coming to Germany to rape and to kill and to throw acid in people's faces, and Angela Merkel's just importing them. Why? Why? Why is this happening? Right? Either she's horribly stupid, or there is some nefarious stuff at work, right? But either way, it's like, hey, German people, like, you need to get that under control. Hey, England, you need to take control of your government. You are the boss, right? You're not my dad, man. No, you are the dad. If you are a citizen, then you're the boss, and those are your servants. Who's the greatest in the kingdom? The one who learns to be servant of all. Right? And if they're no longer serving you, then they see themselves as above you, and that's where problems come in. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. And listen, if you're watching on YouTube, I apologize. I have software so that I can record Skype, face-to-face conversations, but I haven't quite figured out how to use it yet. I apologize. But, I'll put up some pictures or whatever. So no matter how you're listening to this, enjoy the conversation and stay tuned towards the end. Also, if you want to reach out to me on social media, you go on to archadvocate.com, arch-advocate.com. All of my social media links are down there at the bottom. Click on them, join the conversation. That's what we need, people. We need to talk to one another and embrace that idea of community. There's power in it. So enjoy this interview. Enjoy Grant Kidney. I hope that you follow him on all of his social media pages and on his website, which he gives in the interview. And stick around till the end. I've got some more things to say. We'll see you on the other end. Grant Kidney, thank you for joining the Arch Advocate podcast. And
thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
You bet. Let me just do a little bit of muckling with technology here. There we go.
Sure thing.
All right. Now, Mr. Kidney, just like the bean or the vital organ to your body, in case anybody's wondering if it's Kenny or it's kidney, like bean.
Yes, it's kidney, just like a kidney bean. Kidney. It's a Irish surname, and it means something or the other. I've looked it up a long time ago, but it's a unique last name. It's catchy. I think that a lot of people, especially in my congressional run, are going to make light of it. But hey, my entire life, my last name has been made light of throughout high school and all the rest, and I've always taken it like a champion and rolled with the punches.
Well, I think that actually, at just the salesman side of me would say to that, that's actually in your favor. Like if it hits somebody, if it sticks, the name sticks to somebody's mind for any reason whatsoever, particularly if they find it humorous. That's 90%. It's why fast food places have jingles. They just want it to be tattooed into your brain. So I mean, that's an easy one. That's an easy name.
Right. It's all in marketing, right?
Exactly.
And, it's all about presentation.
Exactly. Now you're going to be running for Congress in 2 years. Where do you live at? Who do you want to represent?
So I live in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I will be in the 12th district of Pennsylvania. Currently, our congressman is Congressman Rothfuss, Republican, great guy. And there have been clips when the president has met with Rothfuss and others who represent our state, particularly when Trump came to this region, to an area called Coriopolis. He spoke to factory workers about their huge bonus checks that they were to be given by the company, which was amazing. I knew a lot of people who were given bonus checks because of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. It was an incredible way to spur economic growth. And even to this day, we are seeing long-lasting effects. And ladies and gentlemen, it has just begun. Long-lasting effects of the Tax Cut and Jobs Act have just begun. And we're going to see a whole lot more of activity in terms of economic growth as we head on into what some are calling a trade war with China,
right.
An economic war with China. But I'll tell you what, it's not fair what China is doing to us. It's not fair what other countries are doing to us. President Trump is on the right track in making these people pay.
I've made the observation. My past, my career past, is all finance, and for my first 4 years of that, I was a commodity trader, futures and options.
Right.
And when the trade wars began, you heard a lot of people saying, like, "Dude, this never works out for people. This is not a good idea. This is, this can end very badly." And what I said to that is, that's true. Number one, but number two is they've never seen a hustler like him. There's never been somebody.
They're afraid.
Yeah, there's never been a trade war where there were competent salespeople running it. There were only politicians running it, and those people have. I'm sorry, you people have a tendency to not quite understand. Like, there's also the practice of dealing with people. It's not all just theory. And so you're going to be real. I mean, because Trump really shocked the world with Pennsylvania in particular. Those people, those hardworking, salt of the earth people, they've been voting Democrat a long time. They've been, sort of the champions of labor unions. And of course, if you're an iron worker, if you're working a coal mine, something like that, and yeah, you're going to want to be backed by your unions, but. There was always that sort of implied devotion to the Democratic Party if you were a guy or a girl who belonged to a union. But now it's like, wow, those people are really kind of coming around to seeing, like, now the Republicans, I think, are our friends. I think these people have been screwing us for a long time.
Absolutely. Pennsylvania has always been blue for many, many years.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump turned this state red. And he turned all of these counties, too. These surrounding counties, he turned them red.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of good, hardworking, blue-collar Democrats here in this state and in this county. And these are people who mean really well, but they saw what was happening to our country, okay?
Right.
And they didn't want to cast a ballot for Hillary Rotten Clinton, who would have been a complete nightmare and a complete disaster for our country. And so they saw the alternative. They saw Hillary Clinton. They saw the crimes, the Clinton Foundation. They saw the mess that Hillary Clinton would have caused later on as president of the United States. And they said, I don't want any part of this. And so they cast their ballot for Donald Trump, who is pro-jobs, who wants to spur economic growth, the likes of which this country hasn't seen in decades. And you're right, when you alluded to earlier, the fact that he is a businessman, a skilled businessman, he understands marketing. Donald Trump knows business. And I myself, I know business. I'm a business person as well. And I've run businesses before in the past, and I've managed teams of people. And so what we need more people like Donald Trump in office to carry on this great economic growth, so that way we can beat China in these so-called trade wars, and that we can emerge on top as number one like we should be. I mean, look at, we ship so many great products around the world, and we are the innovators here in this country. You talk about American media. American media is consumed around the world. They know who all of our actors are, even though some of these actors are scumbuckets, right? You look at Johnny Depp, of course, who wanted to assassinate the president. You look at Madonna, who wanted to blow up the White House.
Yeah.
But still, nonetheless, these people are known in other countries. We don't know their actors primarily. We don't know Bollywood actors from India. I mean, some little niche people here in this country who that might be an interest for them may. But what I'm saying is that we export so much wealth and entertainment and goods and products, and we need to stay on top because this is a rapidly changing environment. And in this world, we cannot have a communist Chinese nation at the top. And the globalists, they've always set China ahead as the model, of course, for what they would like to see constructed as a one-world tyrannical system. We see all their white papers. We know what the UN's mission really is, and that's to install a world government system. And you look at Henry Kissinger, and you look at these globalists. Their model is China. And so Donald Trump is taking the fight to them, and he's saying, no, the model for world economic growth, peace, and prosperity will not be China. It's going to be the United States of America. And that should put a big smile, I think, on everyone's faces.
Now, why so long? Why 2020 and not now?
Well, here's the deal. I believe in a long view form of success, similar to what we were talking about China, similar to what the ancient Chinese spoke about in Proverbs and what have you, about a long view of time as opposed to short and quick and fast, such as a lot of Americans are used to, the fast food culture and what have you. So I believe in pacing myself just right, and I believe that I need to perhaps build up a little bit more momentum until the actual run. I have a strategy to build up a little bit more momentum on social media and what have you, despite what I've already got going for me, and then go ahead and start with the campaign, because I believe that it'll have a deeper impact. I also think, too, that the 2018 elections, the midterms, are very, very important. But I also believe that 2020 will be extremely important as well. We know that the Democrats project a so-called blue wave that will come crashing into our country, of course, in 18 and in 2020. We cannot have this happen, and we need to uphold and support our president, not only in the midterms, but also in 2020. And I believe that 2020 is if you're going to believe in numerology and astronomical stuff or astrological stuff and what have you, I don't know, something about the number 2020 and helping the president at that time seems to me the better option.
Now, you said the 12th district, right?
Yes, the 12th district. They've done some redistricting and what have you in this state. It's a little confusing. I'll be honest with you, the redistricting effort has just been underway. There could be a slight correction to that. So anybody watching this now, it's still 18. They just got done with redistricting. But nonetheless, it will be in Pennsylvania.
Roughly how many registered voters live in that district right now?
There are in upwards of tens and tens of thousands. There are a lot of people, of course, in this district, hardworking people, people who voted for Donald Trump. And in this district, the good thing is that there are a lot of rural regions. In Pennsylvania, on the left side of Pennsylvania, you have Pittsburgh, and on the right side, you have Philadelphia.
Right.
But in between, I don't live in between. I live in western Pennsylvania towards Pittsburgh, literally right next to the city almost. But nonetheless, there are still a lot of rural regions that surround it, and there are a lot of hardworking steel mill type towns around the area that voted for Donald Trump, and I will have no problem whatsoever gaining the necessary 500 signatures in order to run. All I have to do is, this is what I said, I'm going to put on my MAGA hat. I'm just going to go door to door. I'm going to be armed, obviously, because we all know what's happening to people wearing the MAGA hat these days.
Yeah, you should do that.
They're getting it right from their heads. Yeah. They're getting, soda pop tossed in their faces, like what happened to the teens at the Whataburger. That's not going to happen to me, okay? I'm just going to I'm going to lay it bare for you.
You'll be all right.
It's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
Sorry. But I have no problem, and I know that I'm not going to have any problem getting the 500 necessary signatures. I'm going to put on the MAGA hat. And the great thing about what Donald Trump has done is he has created himself as a type of lightning rod. So meaning that just by wearing the MAGA hat, a lot of potential voters will see that hat and they will automatically sign. They don't even have to ask what it is that I stand for in most cases, because I stand with President Trump on literally 95% of the issues. But nonetheless, they're going to see the hat and they are going to sign, and it's going to be a quick and easy signature nonetheless.
The reason I was asking, I don't remember a whole lot from civics class. And, because I was in school right when they were removing civics class and replacing it with social studies. So I don't remember a whole lot. But one thing that in this very bizarre landscape or moonscape or scorched earthscape that we're living in right now, where everybody is running around calling people Nazis, and there's people trying to bash people's brains in Portland because a group of folks got together to pray in the middle of the town, and there's just this bizarre thing. It's one thing that occurs to me, not as a guy who worked in finance for over a decade, but just as a Marine, as a United States Marine. Like I look around and I think to myself, like, how is it that the American people have forgotten that it is they who have the power? And how is it that Congress people and two senators per state, how is it that we let everybody run so far amok?
Right. And well, first off, thank you so much for your service. I have a family who is in law enforcement and a family who served in the armed forces, and I'm incredibly, incredibly grateful for your service. I myself, I tried to sign up for the National Guard. I'm a little bit of a hefty guy. This was back when I was 18. I was actually 5 pounds over the weight limit. They said, lose the 5 pounds and you'll make it. And it's so funny. My mom was saying, no, don't do this, because my mom didn't want me in the service. And she said, thank goodness you're a chubby individual. So I really appreciate your service, though, nonetheless. And I feel that, what I'm doing here in this information war, a term coined by Alex Jones, radio host Alex Jones, we really are in an information war.
We really are.
It's not the equivalent of what you did overseas or wherever you serve. But nonetheless, I feel that I'm doing what I can, at least in this information war and in running, of course. And we really are in the midst of a war. You talk about it in Portland, you talk about it in other places where they have great disrespect for our country and for our flag. I did a video recently that showed what I call to be a crusade that liberals have just launched against the so-called racist American flag.
Right.
And I showed a bunch of clips. You can check this out on my Twitter, @GrantJKinney, and on my Facebook as well, where it's going viral on Facebook. On Twitter, it's a little flat. They've got a lot of censorship right now levied against me on Twitter. Facebook, I just did a video. It's nearing 1 million views right now, 11,000 shares, 2,000 likes, and what have you. That's Facebook. Twitter used to get thousands of likes and retweets on a lot of the videos I did, Periscopes. Now it's very flat. It's very strange what's happening. Very strange what's going on. But nonetheless, this video showcased this great hatred and disrespect for our flag. And for veterans like you to see these leftist scumbuckets, these vermin in the streets, burning the flag, spitting on the flag. We saw it Maxine Waters recently outside of her office. Yeah, you may be aware of this.
Yeah, I saw it.
They spit on the flag, they burn the flag. And for someone like you to see that fought for this country, and for someone like my grandfather, too, who fought in World War II and who was buried with that flag on his chest, it just pains my heart that the fact that these people are so disrespectful. So when you talk about what can Congress people do, what can senators do, and what can't.
It's not just that. I want to narrow that question in and bring it in a little closer to the vest. Is that okay? Like I'm from San Diego. I'm not in the United States right now, by the way, but I'm from San Diego, and my congressman, his name is Duncan Hunter, and his father was a congressman before him, same district, right? But I never really learned how much control do I actually have over my congressman, and more importantly, how do I wield it? And how do you, in light of what I said earlier, I truly believe that one of the main components to bringing our nation back to its full strength is to have concerned citizenry and participant citizenry, where it's like, okay, I'm going to vote for Congressman Kinney again. It's been 2 years. I got to vote again. I'm going to go vote Kinney because, he said a bunch of stuff and seems like he's, figuring that out. But there's a lot more as far as my power to contact my congressman and say, hey, I don't like Jeff Sessions, and I would like you to communicate to the president that that guy hasn't yet to turn in a time card. He hasn't done any work since you appointed him. The only thing he seems to talk about is weed and Julian Assange, and I don't give a shit about either of those two things, Mr. Sessions. I would appreciate if you earned that money I'm paying you, right? So how do I contact my Congressman Kinney so that I can yell at him and say, Congressman Kinney, I need you to tell the president, or I need you to tell the Congress, or I need you to tell the governor, what is the machinery behind that? And can you give me your every assurance that when you're running for Congress in 2 years, that you are going to educate your constituency and tell them how to hold those reins of power so that we don't have a goddamn communist running the CIA, and we don't have John McCain being a traitor down in Arizona. You know what I mean? How do we keep you from turning evil?
Right. Okay, so it's a great question.
All right.
Keeping me from turning evil, to be honest with you, and keeping any of our elected representatives from turning evil, the best way to do so is by keeping their feet to the fire through the mechanism that I feel is the strongest way, which is social media.
Okay.
Now, some people may turn their heads and they may say, well, there's such great ineffectiveness with using social media. I would say wrong. There has been significant change to policy and even getting Donald Trump's ear just by raising awareness to certain issues through social media.
Yeah.
And doing what you're doing, for instance, with a podcast and what have you. When there is chatter, Donald Trump listens. Donald Trump checks out a lot of sources from the right where there is what they call an echo chamber or what have you, but it's really an incubator for thoughts and ideas. And ultimately, these ideas, in a lot of cases, have gotten to the president. And you look at Donald Trump's Twitter feed, of course, and he echoes back a lot of ideas that we, the people, have tried to bring to his attention. This happens from time to time. It's a great struggle, though, because we've got 350 million plus people in this country, and there are a lot of different ideas. And when you have someone in Congress, their intent or even presidency is to represent all sides. Nonetheless, though, our nation really has been polarized, right versus left. And I'm proudly to be considered on the right because I believe the right is right at this point in time,
Right.
at this juncture. It's really not a battle of right versus left. It's a battle of right versus wrong. And if you look at these leftist protesters, if you look at
It's
what
crazy.
they're doing in the streets and the level of degeneracy, it's absolutely
It's
off the
crazy.
charts. But yes, and in terms of getting a hold of your elected representatives, they always say call your congressman, write your congressman. These are dinosaur mechanisms. I believe that social media and street activism, which the right really isn't good at, by the way, they're good at social media, but they're not good at street activism. The left is. I believe that it's now time for the right to get really good at street activism. Armed protests are legal if they're done correctly.
You're right.
Armed protests right outside your congressman's office, I mean, this would be a real sure sign that you mean business and that the people that organize this protest mean business.
Wait a minute.
And,
Wait a minute. Let's hold on a second. I just your stock just went up. Okay.
Okay, good.
So, and by the way, and I'll edit this part out really quick. There's a storm outside where I live right now, and sometimes it knocks the power out of the village that I'm in. I'm way up in the Macedonian Alps right now.
Oh, very cool.
I'm in Albania, but if I lose signal, I didn't hang up on you. I lost it. I lost internet. Anyways, I have been asking that question internally and on my podcast a little bit because I don't want to, I don't want to get on John Brennan's, list. But the thing is that there does come a certain point where the people, people like me that are, they're fathers and they have, they've got children and wives and responsibilities, and we tend to keep pretty quiet because we're busy, and we don't really speak up much because we're busy. I got stuff I got to do. I can't be paying attention to your political cause or anything like that. I got what I got to do. But those same people that are seeing right now that the left as an ideology is now trying to warm the people up to the idea of pedophilia. And that's no longer conspiracy theory. It was in the damn New York Times last week.
Yeah, they want to add P to LGBTQIAA, whatever they
Yeah, that's on. Okay, so it's like, well, now you're calling out just old guys like me. You're calling me out, and I'm going to show up if you push me that far. And so when it comes to that sort of, understanding your Second Amendment and what it means and what it doesn't mean, and showing up and saying, listen, Congressman Kinney, who I voted for in 2020, like, I really like you, but I'm just here to remind you, not saying a threat, but, in the old days, we used to pour hot burning tar on people who did this and then threw feathers on them. That was exclusively for people who betrayed the public trust, like politicians.
That's right.
And so tell me, tell me more about what was going through your mind when you said that just a few minutes ago.
Sure. So the Second Amendment is something that I cherish, and the Second Amendment was designed not to protect hunting. I mean, because back then you had to hunt in order to eat.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody knew this. There were no grocery stores such as there are now, and the Second Amendment was used to back up the notion and the fact that the power truly lies in the hands of the American people. Right. And so we had just gotten through a war with the evil King George. Right. And so we asserted ourselves by saying that no more. We have a Second Amendment now to assert the fact that we are in control, not some tin pot dictator or not some foreign leader on foreign soil. We, the people, are in control. And so the Second Amendment is something that I cherish. It's a bedrock foundation to this country. And so far as I'm concerned, if done legally, if an armed protest is organized and it's 100% legal, and you have the correct permits and what have you. That's what I'm saying, of course, because I'm not advocating anything illegal, any type of illegal protests.
Of course not.
But these, in my view, are great ways to assert the fact that those of us here on the right, which is really just the correct view now, the old school traditional view of America, this is, in my view, something that's coming over the horizon that should be considered an option to not only reassert that we, the American people, have power in our hands, but we, the American people who believe in the Second Amendment, who believe in old school Americana, we're not going away.
Right.
We're not going to let our country be taken over by a bunch of green-haired, purple-haired freaks, trans testicles, as Andrew Dice Clay.
Yeah, Andrew Dice Clay, trans testicles. Wow,
Right.
good
Whatever you
callback.
want to call them again. It's considered hate speech now to call somebody who's mentally deranged exactly what they are. If it looks
Sick,
like a duck,
yeah.
if it sounds like a duck, and what have you, it is a duck, right? These are mentally deranged people. I just saw a video of a transgender person with an axe.
I saw
murdering a
that
couple
one
of
too.
people.
I saw that a few
Well, not
days
murdering,
ago.
but attacking a couple people, claiming that they were demon-possessed. But nonetheless, our culture is diminishing. Our culture is going bye-bye,
Yeah.
right? So it's very important, again, in my view, so long as it's done peaceful, so long as nobody gets hurt, so long as there are correct permits, armed protests, I believe, are going to be the future, especially in combating such things as internet censorship. I always wondered if a permit was obtained to surround Twitter headquarters in an armed protest, I wonder how quickly things would change and
Well,
things would turn around. And these quality-filled discrimination bans that they've levied against yours truly and others, I wonder how quickly these bans would mysteriously vanish. They would go away, honestly, overnight because they would be terrified. The soy boys,
Yeah.
if you look at Jack of Twitter, he looks like a total soy boy.
He
The
does.
soy boys and the liberals and the leftist scum who claim that they have no political bias, who are running Twitter, who are running Facebook, these people would be scared. They would run away scared with their tails betwixt their legs if they saw armed protests
Yeah.
outside their headquarters. If everything was done legally, is what I'm saying, obviously. So don't hold me to saying anything that is illegal.
Well, my
You have to
fear,
investigate and make sure everything could be done the way that I'm suggesting. If not, don't do it.
Mr. Kinney, is according to the news, if you protest Twitter on Twitter's campus, you will get human feces on your shoes. That is a fact. So
I guarantee it.
you need to be careful
I
now.
did a video that there was a Jewish immigrant from Israel, came here as a kid. He set up multiple businesses. Real patriotic guy, supports the president, Donald Trump, supports legal immigration as well, this guy, because he did
Don't
it
we
the right
all?
way,
Yeah,
right?
we all do.
Yeah, he wanted to set up shop somewhere, and a bunch of masked liberal agitators came and threw feces at his restaurant. Now, can you believe
Oh
this,
yeah,
right?
I saw that.
Yeah, and I actually, this is the video I alluded to earlier that's nearing 1 million views on Facebook now. It's gone viral, my report about this. Can you believe this? That Jews in America today have to worry not about the Nazis who they claim the right is. The right they're a bunch of Nazis, according to the left. Donald Trump is a Nazi. But if you look at who's throwing feces at Jewish-owned businesses, it's the left. It's the left wing.
No,
And so
they're all like
who
that.
is the real Nazi party in today's generation? It's
Right.
the left wing, the vile left wing. They cloak themselves. They're afraid, of course, of being caught. That's why they wear the masks and what have you. Either that or they're a bunch of real pimply, disgusting-looking people, obviously.
We've seen their
so
faces. Yeah, they're
pimply nerds,
they're
right?
disgusting people. We saw the green-haired kid from over the weekend. That's
Yeah.
that's who they are. They're not.
Absolutely.
They're-
It's an absolute disgrace. And so that's the point here is that, wrapping things up about that last comment we talked about is armed protests, so long as they're done legal, I believe is one such solution to really raising awareness to particular issues. And again, everything has to be done through the proper channels is what I'm saying. But I believe that this is going to be the future. They need to know that we, the people, and those of us on the correct side of the fence these days, obviously, it really is right versus wrong. The whole entire country needs to know that we're not going away, that our views mean something, and that our thirst for freedom and independence and old school Americana, it's not going away.
No, it will not. Tell me about and by the way, you're doing great on this interview. That's I appreciate that you're doing most of the heavy lifting. I like where you're coming from, and just in case anything goes wrong with this video recording, I just want everybody to know the kid ain't reading a script. All right, there's nothing in front of the guy. This is coming straight out of his gut.
Right.
Tell me about you, sir. Where are you from?
I'm from the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania region,
Okay.
and it's a mountainous region, and there's a lot of really cool little cities that surround it. And I'm from I was born in the actual city itself, and we moved to all the different surrounding satellite neighborhoods as a kid. I lived in Des Moines, Iowa, for about 5 years. Attended college out there.
Where'd you go to school?
It was Des Moines Area Community College. I was with someone then, a girlfriend, and her family moved us out there. Went to school. Great people out there, by the way, in Iowa. If I had stayed there, I would have run for Congress there in Iowa.
Yeah, those are a hardy
Pittsburgh,
people. Yeah, those are hardy people out there, both there and Western Pennsylvania for sure. Hard, rugged, rugged people. It always kind of blew my mind to learn that the type of people that lived in Western Pennsylvania would vote Democrat, but it's just like, I guess it's one of those things.
It's an old school. It has to do with the labor unions, the steel mills, and what have you. So it's not really the purple-haired kind of liberalism or Democratic Party out there, or what was prevalent. It's more or less the old steel mill town type, Democrats. So there's a big difference. Obviously.
Well, there's still
sort of like a JFK Democrat versus the purple. So.
Those people, they still sort of have it in their DNA back in the old company store days where the guys who were wealthy enough to own those plants, they were basically slave drivers. And so those people, they're very committed to the idea of a union because they're like, man, my great-grandfather told me some stories that would make you puke. So, we're going to be voting for the people who say that they are for the unions. So
right. Andrew Carnegie, big name out here. Everything's named after him here and across the country as well. But Andrew Carnegie was one such individual who said a lot of great things, and he did a lot of great things too, but he's like a yin-yang. And a lot of these guys at the very top, the billionaire status, God bless America and capitalism, which I'm completely for, but you sometimes see a yin-yang type status with these people where they are doing a lot of good, but it's balanced out by a lot of bad stuff, like with Jeff Bezos of Amazon, who has created industry and jobs and incredible value. But yet this guy needs to have his feet held to the fire. What with his acquisition of the Washington Post and the pumping out of fake news, he thinks he can just own a newspaper now and derail the president. Honestly, there's no real rule saying that he can't in terms of our capitalist system, but it's an ethical question. And should he? I don't know. But that's how it was with Andrew Carnegie. And up here, there were no laws or rules regulating labor and what have you. Sticky situation. There's some people on the real libertarian side of the fence who don't want any kind of labor laws or what have you, or an FDA, for instance. So you go to the grocery store and you wouldn't see what the ingredients are in a particular box of cereal. I think that would be bad news. We need to have some level of controls, of course. So I'm not on that total libertarian side of things, but we need to have some level of controls, particularly with labor. Like, for instance, child labor laws. We've got to have that. You can't have children working in factories or what have you, back in the old days. So that's where I stand.
I'm a big fan of regulation, to the chagrin of all my libertarian friends, but regulation only in the sense of just a list of things that you're not allowed to do. You can't pour that in the river. Don't put that in the ground. Don't put that in the sky. If you're going to hurt animals, then you have to get a license and doctors have to be consulted and whatever. Like, you better be curing cancer. But the amount of regulating everything and taxing, and fining every violation of regulation, it's like, well, now you're just trying to get money. And you're not.
That's right.
You're doing it under the guise of telling people like, oh, we're doing good. We're doing good work here. We're saving the environment. It's like, no, you're just making money. And like, I would kind of prefer that money went to tax cuts for the guy that I work for because I want a Christmas bonus, and I don't care. I don't know if this goes on in your area, but in California, where I'm from. The reason why nobody can afford to live in a home, or even really not very many people can afford to even rent an apartment, is because the state government has put all these little nickels into. I've seen people lose their minds over it. Like this. There was this one guy who went to go build a church, and he was the pastor of a big Wesleyan church in San Diego called Skyline. And if you lived in San Diego, you would, regardless of your background, you would know where Skyline was. And in the early 90s, this pastor, he said, listen, I need $4 million. I'm going to build this church, and it's going to be huge, and we're going to be able to fill it, put as many people in here as we want. And so the council gave him the okay. And $20 million later, he gave up and he quit the ministry. Because the state would come in and they say, oh, we found this burnt rock. So now we have to hire a bunch of, and this is literally the story. We found a burnt rock. So now we need to get people in here to investigate to see if this was some sort of Indian burial ground or whatever. Oh, and here's where it gets awesome. You have to pay for it. And then once that investigation done, it's like, oh, we found this mouse, and it's got a weird tail. And so now, and it went on, and that's why it went from a $4 million quote from the purchase of the land and the quotes from the construction guys and everybody else, $4 million, $16 million more in what the state was paying. And it's like, and then Democrats wonder, they look at how high the price of real estate is. It's like, well, if you're building homes and you do that to a real estate developer, he's not going to take that in the ass. He's going to charge the buyer. So the guy shows up and says, I want to buy a house. Oh, sir, that'll be, $750,000 for a condominium. It's like, well, wait a minute. Why is that? Oh, because of wealthy, the 1%, man, the people that Bernie's always trying to get, them.
Right.
It's those people. Right. It's like, no, asshole. Like, you charged that guy. That guy would have sold me that same house for $100,000. But now
it's silly. President Trump talks about, building the wall, and there's some construction in San Diego and what have you, but there are a lot of opponents, as we know, to the idea of the wall, and they are digging up these old arcane environmental regulations as to why it is that he can't build the wall, where it is that he wants to build it. So they say that there's a type of snake, a type of fish,
a type of bug, anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And they'll dig up anything as an excuse. And they did this with the Bundy Ranch and what have you. Yeah. Those of you who are familiar with the Bundy Ranch situation, and these environmental rules are used by the state to try to rob landowners of their assets. That's what these environmental regulations are concocted to actually do. Now, don't get me wrong. I love animals, and I love the environment. I love the idea of fresh water, fresh streams, and fresh air to breathe and what have you. But we have to be clear what these environmental regulations were designed to do. They were designed to rob landowners of their assets, so that way the state can control whatever property they put their eye on.
Yep.
And they can do this to anyone.
Yeah.
And so these regulations are big regulations. They are old regulations. They're dinosaur regulations. It would take a lot of work for members of Congress. When I'm elected, I don't even say if, I say when I'm elected. It's going to take a lot of work to actually get these types of regulations under control. But President Trump is actually rolling back a lot of regulations as they pertain to industry, which is good. And so we can see a lot of companies now wanting to come back to this country. We know that Apple is building factories here. We know that Foxconn is building factories here. We had Harley Davidson say that they wanted to leave because of the trade war stuff, the so-called trade war stuff. But nonetheless, a lot of companies are coming back because of the deregulation that President Trump is implementing. So overall, in a nutshell, I'm with you in that some regulations are needed. So I'm glad to find out that you're not for total rollback in a Ron Paul type sense that could, in my view, make everything a lot dangerous for everybody.
Well, I think we need the Ron Pauls, not so that we can do everything that they say, but so that we can. I think when you see things from like Ron Paul's the extreme on his side, and then there's Miss Cortez from the Bronx on the other side, and it's like, okay, so now I can see how far bat guano crazy I can go.
Right.
Somewhere in the middle.
Ron Paul, by the way.
What's that?
I voted for Ron Paul in 08.
Oh no, he's a good dude. He's a good dude. I love him. I'd vote for him. If he would have ran against Hillary for president, I would have voted for him. But that's not what I'm saying. Like, we all know, like he says some things sometimes, that are a little hard. Like, whoa, brother, come on. Right. Come back towards the center a little bit more. You're getting close to the edge there. But
close to reality.
Yeah. So, how can you assure, and that obviously I'm not going to be living in Pennsylvania, but if I was, if I was your constituent, how would you assure me, and this is like, I would hope that you would take this into your political circles and the people that you rub elbows and hang out with, is like, this is what I want, and I, as a podcaster and somebody who stays close to my audience, I have several different ways that we have open conversations, not just Twitter messaging back and forth, but there's other social media platforms where we just talk about stuff, everything.
Right.
And one sense that I'm really getting is like, you know what, it would make me feel a lot more at ease if I knew. If I had a congressperson or even a governor or a senator who would somehow take the time, perhaps on social media, to teach me how I can keep my hands on the reins and at the same time understand that, you represent tens of thousands of people probably. I don't know how big of a, how many people are going to be in your district, but the one thing that I try to bring about with my show is getting people to realize, like, hey, we are the ones who are strong. We are the ones with all of the military training. And if you're on the right and you don't have military training yourself, I bet your granddad did. I bet there's a lot of people out, like we've got all the jobs, we've got all the money, we've got all the arms and the ammunition, but it's like, you know what I really want to do is I want to be able to know that, if I tell you, like, listen, this is the thing I want done, all right, or this is the thing that I want you to address, like pork barrel spending in office. Like I'm going to vote for you, Congressman Kennedy, because I want you to go address that particular issue, pork barrel spending. Now, I know that as I tell you that in the line of handshakes, as I'm walking by and you're shaking everybody's hand, that the next guy is going to say, Congressman Kennedy, you know what? My thing is this. I want veterans in my area to be better taken care of. And then the next person after that is going to have their thing. So I understand that there is sort of that impossibility. But there's one thing I think that the Congress people don't understand, and also the citizenry doesn't understand that they're feeling this way, is that it's a very lonely feeling when you feel that, like, even if you do shout, you will still not be heard. And if I feel like, well, I could send Congressman Hunter or Congressman Kidney, I could send them an email, but man, if they don't reply to it within a week, I'm gonna feel like I'm a mute voice. I can't, I feel powerless in this because I can't tell my congressman, listen, damn it, I need you to fix pork barrel spending, man. We're blowing through all this money. Can you please just tell me something? So how will you assure people that they are going to feel empowered by having you as a congressman?
So, as a member of Congress, I will technically be a spokesperson for people who don't have the time to, engage in such political activity or what have you.
Right.
So it's a very big responsibility, as you're saying. And, one thing about a U.S. congressman, which is fantastic, is that, so for instance, legislation is presented by a U.S. congressman from any particular district, but it's nationwide legislation that you propose. So a lot of the stuff that I do will have an impact not only on the district, but also on the whole of the country. Like Congressman Donovan of New York presented a piece of legislation that's going through up to the Senate right now about banning child sex dolls. Believe it or not, there's people that have dolls that are designed to look like children, and he created legislation to try to stop the import of these particular dolls, not the possession. So if anybody has them now, that's just their thing. But they are actually importing these dolls, believe it or not. But this would be nationwide legislation is the point. So I'll have the ability to help craft nationwide legislation as well. And so that's what the Congress does. So it's basically a mix between national stuff and local. Now, in terms of folks locally and pork spending and what have you, the most important thing to do, like I said, you can email and you can write your congressperson, but I really believe in, and this is something that I've done in my own personal life, is I really believe in showing up. I believe in showing up to your local congressman's office or a state senator, state representative. I actually had an issue where, I'm not going to get into the full details of it, but I had an issue where I needed to go to the state representative's office. So I walked right in, and they told me to create a letter, and I did, and they faxed it to the appropriate personnel, and we had results. And this was just something I did as a regular old citizen. So I think that this is something that in the day and age of social media, people are neglecting and they're forgetting. But even before social media, people just, do a phone call or write. But I believe in showing up in person. And, it's kind of like the old school view of just getting business done in a practical way. I was a big fan of The Sopranos show and the whole Italian mobster culture and what have you. And they didn't do emails or phone calls to get things done. Sometimes a phone call, but they would show up in person to get things done, in their own illegal ways, obviously, which I don't advocate. But that idea, though, nonetheless, that energy, that drive to show up in person and get things done, I think that that's what is needed.
Absolutely.
And again, this comes down to walking into your congressman's office and, having video with you, of course, so that way you can demonstrate if there's any injustices made against you, if you're thrown out of your congressman's office, put that on social media, and then bam, what will you have then at that point? Well, you're going to have not only sympathy for you, but sympathy for your cause. Your congressman is going to say, well, what did this guy really want, or congressperson? What did this individual walk in my office really want? So you see, there's a combination of that. So it really comes down to understanding, I believe, marketing and business. And I believe that understanding these factors, not everybody's going to do it. But if somebody really wants to get the ear of their congressman, going through back channels and backdoor ways, you can actually achieve a lot of results. So it comes down to being really sneaky. I don't like that. Sometimes sneaky, crafty, pragmatic, you know what I mean?
Well,
but sometimes,
yeah.
I don't like the inefficiency of that, but it is needed.
It is, and I think that's the breakdown, is that, when you're, I can't imagine what a pastor of a large church goes through in a week. So I can't imagine what a congressperson goes through, because there's always going to be a segment of any population that is going to be very civic minded, and they're all these questions that I have about how do I keep my congressman humble. Let's just say, if I see my congressman going towards the dark side, right? They start, the money gets to him or the power gets to him. I do know how to, to address that, but I think that a lot of people.
Being at the dark side, my guy here.
Oh, very nice, dude. He pulled out of nowhere. He pulls Darth Vader up. Sick. So there's going to be a segment of the population that is going to be civic minded, and they'll know how to contact you, and they'll know the relevance of contacting you. But I think a lot of people don't, and I think that you are right. I'll tell you something else that I see is that. King Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. But now there is. For the first time in history, we can see in real time everything that's going on around the world at all times. Right? We can see the bombing on the Gaza Strip, and we can see the volcano in Hawaii, or we can see whatever it is that we want to see. And, I have a theory that, if somebody like Hitler, for example, if all this technology existed in the 1930s, or if a Hitler emerged right now, it wouldn't work, because everybody would be looking at it going, no, we're not killing any Jews. No, we're not doing that. And, so for the first time in history, and this is, and I'll be honest here, at first, I was not a fan at all of the president tweeting. Not a fan.
Sure.
But now, I've completely.
I do.
So you know what I'm saying? I'm completely
in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, I think the tweets are sometimes counterproductive, but in a lot of ways, though, it's again a yin yang effect.
I can see what my president is thinking right now. That's never happened. I can see my president's thoughts, right?
Yeah.
And that's you want to connect to people. It's let them see, and if you can't talk to them one-on-one, just show them your thoughts, and they'll see, oh, that's a live, living human being person right there. Whereas, Hillary Rodham Clinton with her Kentucky Fried Chicken skin and falling over and talking about, that crazy look in her eyes when she's like, why am I not 50 points ahead, you might be asking. It's I don't know, crazy bitch, I'm not asking you anything. I'm going to try to get away from you, crazy
looker.
What a
crazy woman.
And
nasty woman.
Not she's not Ashley Judd nasty, but Miss Jackson nasty. But what was I getting? I'm sorry to go off on a tangent. Oh yeah, so
real-time thoughts of the president.
And so social media, I think if you in particular, but you and your cohorts, your partners in crime, your contemporaries, whatever it is that you call them, if you would bring us in with that, because I know social media is a bit of a discipline. It's not always easy to look at. People will say the most ugly things on there, but like if you could genuinely foster that sort of family, familial type of relationship where it's like, I said my piece, and I know that Congressman Kidney heard me, and he acknowledged that I spoke to him, so I know that I got through. Like if we could have that, if there was that sort of symbiont relationship where everybody understood, like, I'm doing my part, and my part is to make sure he's doing his part, and his part is to make sure that my part is represented properly in the big house, there in the swamp. And if you can do that, if you can be a man of the people, because I think that the number one problem that American voters are feeling right now is a feeling like, those aren't real people. My vote doesn't count. That guy's just trying to get, he's just trying to get into that position because he's going to start off at $174,000, and he'll never have a possibility of going broke because the government's going to pay him even if he only works for 4 years. And there's a lot of negativity because we could never touch the president. We could never touch our Congress people or whatever. They were just this weird class of people who they talk like weathermen. They're always, their speech is always so well crafted that it's like, dude, nobody even talks like that. Why are you talking to me like that?
Right, the sun will rise, and the moon will fall.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if I wanted to see this act, I'd go to church. But
yeah,
and so like, do you see? I mean, is that something that you would say? I know this is a horrible way to set up this question because obviously the answer is yes. But how do you see yourself integrating social media in with staying with your ear to the rail of your own God help me, constituency?
Well,
there we go. I said it.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm an avid social media user.
Okay.
And I have a blog that has been inactive because I realized that with social media, it's just much quicker to communicate thoughts and ideas. And so, microblogging and social media really is. That seems to be a better fit. And one thing that I do is I talk to people now, and as a congressperson, I believe that I will carry forth that tradition. I respond to comments. I reply to individuals. So I feel that, where you're getting at, one thing that I have considered is the idea that when I'm blue checkmark verified and what have you as a congressperson, and somebody tweets at me saying, hey, I wrote your office. Did you get a chance to review it? I'd like to be able to reply to that personally. And I'd like to be able to say that, hey, yeah, you know what? We checked it out. We're going to go ahead and get some things done for you on your behalf, or vice versa. And I feel that that is going to be a very powerful tool to be able to, in real time. We were talking about the president's thoughts. You're able to see them in real time. I believe that this is the new way of doing things. Yeah. And, you look at other Congress people, and they're not as avid users as Donald Trump is with Twitter. Trump doesn't really respond to individual people. He has at times, he's retweeted individuals, and you can't really expect much from the president.
No, but he does. He doesn't tweet though in a way where it's like, oh, your speechwriter wrote that. It's like he talks. I don't know. And beg your pardon for not asking this at the. How old of a guy are you?
32.
Okay, 32. I'm 45 now. When I was a kid, right, in the early 80s, so 1983, I was 10 years old, right? And around that time, we used to see this young, powerful, tall, New York business real estate mogul on television, right? And he was famous, but he wasn't a movie star, and he couldn't sing. Or, he wasn't that kind of famous. He was famous for being super rich in the hardest place in the world to be a super rich guy. Yeah. And he was it, and also he was young and good looking, and his wife was super hot, and she talked funny because she was from another place, right? Mm-hmm. And so from that time, it's like this man has been in my brain since I was a little kid as somebody I wouldn't want to hang out with. Like I don't like cities. He's from the biggest one we have, the biggest one there is. And also, he's a fast talker. I prefer country folk. He's obviously not a very Christian fella. I like church folks. You know what I mean? And so he was always in there. And now, like when I see his tweets, I don't think even people over at the Young Turks would disagree with the statement. It's like, dude, ain't nobody writing those tweets for him. Like that's coming straight out of his sack. You're getting the goodies out of the sack when he's talking that way.
And I completely concur with that.
Right?
You can tell that Trump's not scripted. He freestyles everything whenever he gets on the stage. I saw when he came to Pittsburgh. I saw him at an aircraft hangar, which was really, really cool. He arrived on the Trump jet, and they were playing some really cool music. I think it was from the movie Air Force One, which was interesting because this was before the election. And they were playing, almost projecting the movie Air Force One when he landed. And you saw him got out of the plane. It was so cool. But one thing that struck me was just how this guy is able to riff and freestyle. He didn't have the script whatsoever. He wasn't reading off a teleprompter, which is great. So he knows the stuff. And one thing that he does is he pays attention to the news and what's happening and the pulse. He's got his pulse on the country. And so he's able to develop his own brain talking points and connect with people on that level. So that's what I admire a lot about him. And I myself, coming from an independent investigative journalist type background, now I'm a blogger, it's similar for me as well, where, I have my finger on the pulse, so I've got things to talk about, and I don't need a script. And you sound the exact same way as well, where you don't need a script either. So, it's people like us that they can connect to. People like Trump that can be connected to, and I think that's what voters are really looking for.
It's been you don't usually, I mean, because his start as far as popularity goes was a pretty rocky start, and right now as far as abdication goes, or not abdication but apostasy goes, the falling away from one party and going and mingling with another party, it's only moved, that river's only flowing in one direction. There's no Republicans right now going, you know what, this guy is bullshit. I'm gonna go vote for Bernie next time around. There's none of that. Everybody that's shifting is looking at the left, going, wait a minute now, you guys are talking about pedophilia. You've had this investigation going on for 2 years, and the most that you can come up with is $180,000 in Facebook ads. That's all you got. What?
Right.
That's...
Russians, a handful of Russians, 12 to 15, however many Russians influenced the entire election, turned the whole country red on that night. It's really ridiculous. And, you look at it and you ask, they talked about, Stephen Colbert even the other day talked about how, Russian hacking of the election. What did they hack? So you can't hack the voting machines. That's impossible. They're decentralized and localized. So they didn't hack the voting machines. What did they do then? What do you mean by hack the election, Mr. Colbert? He's trying to mislead people by using such terminology, which is misleading.
It's amazing that people still fall for it. It's crazy.
Full of Russians, apparently, a basement full of Russians. They somehow convinced and again, in the liberals' view, then people must be really stupid, right?
Right.
The fact that they're led astray by a handful of Russians. The whole public must be so stupid that the majority of them voted for Trump because of what a basement full of Russians said.
Right.
I don't buy it. Sorry. I mean, it's ridiculous.
No.
They talk about how the right has all the conspiracy theories. Sorry. The Russian collusion delusion is the biggest conspiracy theory that you could ever lay hold of.
Yeah. You've got the CIA and the FBI working around the clock on it for, almost 2 years now, and all you came up with is a basement full of Russian dudes that were screwing around on Facebook for $160,000, that's, I don't know how we got to talking about people flowing. That's it? That's the connection. I think the things that have convinced me, because again, when he was running for president, I was hitchhiking through Europe, and so everybody that I would talk to, all the other campers and fellow hitchhikers and people, people that would give us rides and stuff all over the place, like they would always ask, like, what do you think about? Do you think it's going to be Hillary or do you think it'll be Donald Trump? And I'd always say, it's like, to me, it really doesn't matter because of the fact that those are our two options means that there's an even bigger problem that's going to make itself manifest. But I am happy and proud to tell you today, like I could not have been more wrong, and it gives me so much joy to know that I can look back on myself 2 years ago and think, that guy knew nothing. Like, there was so much good stuff that was about to happen for that guy and his country that I'm so glad that I'm not that person anymore. Even 2 years ago, I'm really very like I'm not just like a Trump fan that's just gonna wear a red hat. Or it's like no, like in my spirit, you know what I mean? In my soul, I'm very happy and relieved and encouraged once again because of this man that has so outperformed all of my expectations, to even to the point to where when it's like when you're talking about getting into trade wars and you talk about did he say the right thing in front of Putin or didn't he, you know, like those sort of conversations. It's like, you know what, I'm gonna spot the dude. You know, I'm gonna spot the dude. If he screws up, I'm gonna give him a mulligan. And if he screws up twice, I'll probably give him two. But you know, like he's got me. And so if you can also join that sort of that mindset of like, hey brother, you just need to make yourself accessible, right? I don't, you know, obviously I can't have a one-on-one with our president. I can't expect to see a tweet back. But what I can expect is that when he says something, if he gets on TV, it's like you're going to get unscripted. You're going to hear what the man is thinking. And I don't know that. I don't even know that Ronald Reagan could boast that.
Right. Absolutely. He's a very special guy. You know, I voted for Trump, and I was for Trump from the get-go. And you know, there were times when I didn't think he would win, though. After the Access Hollywood tape,
yeah.
I was led astray, to be honest with you, by the hubbub in the media saying that this is damaging, what have you. But nonetheless, he pulled through and he made it. I worked very hard on election night. Even I was live tweeting and doing a lot of things on Facebook as well. And it was a really exciting time, honestly, to feel in my gut and to feel in my soul that America was coming back.
Yeah,
and you know, I looked at it too. You know, I'm a spiritual guy. I'm a Christian. And I look at it too as almost a battle between good versus evil.
It truly is.
I felt in my soul that the other side was really a rotten, stinking corpse of globalism that is under complete and total satanic control.
Yeah.
And it was going head to head with, again, old school Americana, as represented by the businessman Donald Trump, who's not perfect, who's not an angel, but he is definitely a wrecking ball to that old dinosaur system. And, you know, in the past, God has used people who weren't necessarily religious or what have you, like King David. And God has used individuals, obviously, to push through a certain agenda. And, you know, I believe that God is using Donald Trump. And so it was a real blessing on election night to have someone who I worked really hard to get voted for, to have him elected president of the United States.
Did you just say King David?
King David.
What did you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is that he wasn't a perfect guy.
And,
other people that God have used as well weren't perfect.
You know, I heard Ben Shapiro talking about that, and I'm kind of on his side. Where he says don't look to Trump to be David. Look to yourself to be Nathan. You know, King David's prophet. You need to look like I was saying earlier. Like there is that. Whoa, is that your cat?
That's my cat.
Sweet.
And by the way, my cat's name is Donald Trump.
You're kidding me. Let me see this cat. Is it orange?
Well, he's over.
He's over there on the floor. Okay.
But he's orange, and he's very vocal, and he's big. He's like Garfield, so I called him Donald Trump.
Oh man, you're gonna win. You're gonna win in a landslide. You walk around with a cat named Donald Trump and a MAGA hat on. You're done. You're in there.
Maybe I'll bring the cat along with me in a little wheelbarrow.
Yeah. What I was gonna say is that'd be hilarious. Is that you know, the people they need to be able to be the prophet Nathan and say, listen, you know, if you screw up, it's like, well, you're going to hear about it, because that's kind of the implied deal, is that, you know, of course you can screw up. You know, you can look. We've all seen all of the presidents do bad things, right? President Bush signed the Patriot Act. There's no getting around that.
Right.
That was a violation of the Constitution. Right.
A lot of ways. In a lot of ways, you know, protects our country, but a lot of the verbiage in the Patriot Act was very startling.
Very startling. Yeah, there was a lot of people like me, you know, former active service men and women that, you know, and I would have conversation with strangers regularly about like, I think he just violated the Constitution. What does that
Right.
mean? I mean, what does that mean to the oath
Right.
that I swore? Do we need to drive to 1400 Pennsylvania and get dirty? Because is that what we're supposed to do? Is that what that like we would have discussions about what is that what that oath means that we swore standing there on yellow footprints? Like when we said that we would protect the Constitution of the United States and obey the
Right.
the president's orders and all that stuff. Like it put us in a weird position, and it's like we never had the ability to contact George Bush and be like, listen, I know these are weird times and we're all kind of in a weird place. We just got attacked. Things are weird.
Right.
I understand, but like this can't like once that first whatever it was 2 years or 4 years, once that's over, you got to ditch that thing. And then then he
Right.
signed it again, and then Obama ratified it again, or whatever that process is called. And it went on, and that Reagan with the the Iran Contra affair, like we all saw it. It's like, oh, and then he's up there on up on the witness stand saying, I can't recall, and we didn't have a voice in that. And as I said before, like these, the thing that's going to save us, one of the main components that's going to save us, and it's going to be different for you as a congressman than any other congressman before. Well, I guess if they won in the last 10 years, it would be different, but. What's going to be new is that you are going to be held way more accountable because I will have more access to you,
Right.
not control, and certainly you're going to have to figure out a peaceful, well thought out plan on how to keep from going Twitter crazy and responding to the haters and maybe
There are plenty of haters. Believe
there's
me.
plenty of haters, and then you're gonna just have little old ladies in your constituency that want to talk about putting a new paint coat on the side of the local school, and that's gonna be Osama bin Laden to them. You know what I mean? Like they're just gonna they're gonna be hounding you, and of course you're gonna have to figure out how to juggle all that as well. But I would say with this conversation so far. And I sincerely, Mr. Kidney, I sincerely hope that you come back on the show and come visit us again.
Absolutely.
But this has been actually very refreshing. And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't want to say this on a separate recording when I put out my podcast. Like when I first started hearing you talk, I was like, man, this guy talks too fast. He knows what he's about. He knows what he's saying right now. He knows what 3 sentences from now he's going to say. And that it's like, there's that sort of, but after listening to you for a while, it's like, oh no, that's just how this guy thinks. You know what I mean? And so
my style is a little freeform, but
it's good.
It's something I'm used to.
It sounds like you're reading off of a teleprompter. You know what I mean? And that's why I interjected earlier. It's like I can assure if you're listening to this podcast and not seeing it on YouTube, I can assure you there's nothing in front of this guy, right?
I mean, there's an iPad, but I'm not using it.
Yeah,
for
you're
anything.
not. You wouldn't be able to respond to my questions and be able to do that. So it's all been great.
You're doing a great job too. You're not reading off anything as well,
No.
as far as I know. So that's what's good as well. So for everybody watching, this guy, me, Donald Trump, we're just able to do it because we have a level of dragon energy, like Kanye
Dragon
West
energy,
and,
yeah.
himself and Trump. Dragon energy.
Now, where can people come and give you some love on Facebook? Where are you at on Facebook?
Sure. So it's facebook.com/Grant J. Kidney.
All right.
Twitter is @GrantJKidney.
Grant J.
I'm
Kidney.
on Gab. Yeah, I'm on Gab as well.
Gab AI.
Gab.ai/Grant J. Kidney.
Now, where do you have a Gab AI address attached to either your Facebook or your Twitter so that people can just make the jump from there?
It's not on my Twitter, but there's a link to my website on my Twitter @GrantJKidney, and there's a social box on my website.
Oh,
that has
so they
all
can
the
do
different-
all the things.
Yeah,
Except not Gab AI. Could you have Gab AI on your social
I
links?
do, but the
Do I?
icon is like a little question mark, a little green question mark.
Really?
Because they don't have the icon for Gab yet in a lot of those social boxes or whatever you can put on
I
the
don't think I
website.
figured out how. My wife builds my website, so that's different. But
Okay.
so Twitter, Gab AI, Facebook, and you have some videos. I'll ask you to repost those so that my listeners, when they go onto your Twitter and they go onto your Facebook, that those videos that you were talking about earlier, they won't have to dig very deep. If you would, just hit
Absolutely.
retweet or resend or whatever on Facebook so they can pull that up. Mr. Kidney, thank you so much for joining us. That was refreshing, and I feel I feel that my patriotism is being served by people that are doing the work that you're looking to do right now. That there is a major shift happening. It's not coming. We're smack in the middle of it.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate it when somebody has the stones to sit down, talk for a while. Let us know who you are. What are you about? Can't be said enough. It's going to take all of us, and I appreciate you doing your part, sir.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
You bet.
So that's it, man. That was a really good conversation. I really enjoyed that. Like, when I hear people talk like that, it inspires me to hope, right? That the Republic will live on. That there are good people out there that are willing to do hard work. Now, listen, I think that everybody, in politics, everybody, I believe that they all start off with the best intentions, right? I believe that. I don't see how you couldn't. Like, when you're young, when you're 20, 22 years old, 26 years old, like you have an idealistic view of the world. You want the best for everybody. I believe that. And I think that when you get in power, the power starts immediately corrupting you. And the money. Those are horrific temptations that are very difficult to overcome. And the way that we keep those things in check is that we become civically responsible. Right? Now, there's a lot of people out there, the silent majority, right? Not the useful idiots, but the silent majority. And I would hazard a guess that 95% of the United States population is the silent majority. Most of us are just working class people. It's like, I got to go to work, got to do my 10 hours, right? My 8 to 12 hours, whatever it is, and then I got to go home. And my kids have dance recital and horseback riding lessons and football practice or whatever. I got stuff I gotta do. I can't be getting involved in like asking the question, why is there a Congress lady in South Florida that dresses like a rodeo clown? Why is that happening? Like I can't be bothered, man. I got stuff I gotta do. Right? But if you poke that bear hard enough, it's gonna wake up. And I'm seeing more and more. It's like, well, you've got people running around calling everybody Nazis. You've got, like I said, we're $20 trillion in debt. Did you vote for that? Did you say, hey, Barack Obama, it's okay if you take my money and give it to Iran? Right? No, that's a politician. That's the leader of the free world going rogue. The President of the United States is a servant. He's a butler for all of us. That's our person, right? That's how you get to be in leadership, is that you have to be a servant. You have to have a servant's heart. And when the people forget, it's like, no, they work for us. It's not the other way around. We don't vote those people in office so that they can run amok. And we have to hold those people accountable. Or else we lose the republic, right? That's why the idea of socialism seems to, I don't believe it's catching on to the degree that the news would have you believe, but there's certainly people out there that are like, oh yeah, socialism sounds good. It's like, dude, have you ever read a history book? Do you know anything? Do you know that this always goes bad and it always turns into communism and it always kills tens of millions of people? You say you want to give it the old college try again? Anyways. We are a nation of laws. We have to use that as our guide stone, as our ruler. Not ruler as in a person who rules, but a ruler like a stick that tells you how big 12 inches is, right? There's another way of doing it, but I digress. But this is the thing, and that shooting that happened over the weekend, I started a conversation about that because I want people to be able to talk about that, because that was kind of like the perfect storm, if you will. Now, again, I'm not trying to be flippant. A man lost his life, and that's a tragedy. But we can take that one example because it's unique in the sense that everybody in that story was an asshole. These people pull up to a convenience store and park in a handicap spot. That is a dick move by a garbage human. Anybody who parks in the handicap spot is a garbage human who does not belong there. Right? And then a guy gets out of his car and he starts looking up and down the car like he's the boss. And it's like, dude, you're a garbage human. That's not your business. If you're truly offended by that, then you need to let the law take care of this. You need to call the cops. Right? And also, is it that big of a deal to you? Is there somebody waiting behind there, like, somebody who doesn't have any legs, honking their horn, going, hey, man, get the hell out of my parking spot? Was that going on? Okay, well, then don't involve yourself. Right? It's not, it's that thing of like, dude, choose your battles. Right? Now, if there was somebody waiting there that wasn't allowed to park there because some asshole's parking there, then yeah. But not until then. And then the guy comes out and shoves the guy to the ground. That's another garbage human move. Like, you're just going to go right to felony assault. No talking, no nothing, just straight to felony assault. Prison time. You didn't think that through? You're just going to go right to something that, like, if it had just ended right there and nobody got shot, like, that guy would be facing prison time. That's felony assault. You can die from pushing people that hard to the ground. Easily. Easily. And then he shoots the guy. So another garbage human move. So we were talking, and my friend Mike, who is kind of like, to me, I think is sort of, if you want to check him out on Facebook, he's sort of the avatar for the silent majority, right? A guy who I think is outside of myself, kind of represents like what I see is like who everybody in America is. I know Mike. I know where he works. I know his dad. By the way, like, remember when we were kids and you would say like, oh, my dad can beat up your dad? Well, like, Mike's dad was the guy who could beat up everybody's dad, which you'd never know it because he was a nice guy, and you wouldn't know that either because he never talked. You know what I mean? He was quiet. He worked hard. He took care of his business, took care of his family, and that's who he was. So it's kind of like his dad is like the ultimate representation of like, this is who America is, right? He's a guy, he owns his own business, he works real hard, minds his own damn business, and raises his own family. And I believe that 95% of America, you know what I mean, or 90%, whatever, the overwhelming majority, that truly represents who America is. And if you poke those people hard enough, if you push those people hard enough, you keep up with your Nazi talk, and you keep up with, oh, the president's a traitor because he talked to Vladimir Putin, which, by the way, is the president's primary job, right? Again, I know a lot of us never, had the benefit of civics class, but the president has two jobs, and one of them is commander-in-chief. But that job is actually secondary to his primary job. His number one job is to be the head of foreign affairs. He presides over foreign affairs. His job is literally to go talk to Putin and keep Putin at the table of discussion. That's his job. That's what we hired him for. And you've got the former director of the CIA, who, by the way, is a communist, an actual communist. He's on TV calling him a traitor. A traitor, that's his job. And the fact that people will listen to Brennan and be like, oh yeah, he's a traitor, and they start parroting those words, it's like, you moron. That is the job of the president of the United States, is to go talk to Putin and to go talk to, Lil Kim and to go talk to Angela Merkel and Macron and Trudeau and whoever. That's his job. It's bizarre. And if you keep poking at the silent majority and you keep allowing the useful idiots to be on TV and calling everybody a Nazi, and by the way, I believe that the useful idiots, they're the other 5%. I don't believe that these people who, have communism in mind and socialism in mind, I don't believe that they represent the majority of America. I don't believe that what's going to happen in the first week of November is going to be anything other than an absolute landslide, just an absolute red wave that's going to look like bloodshed. I believe that because I believe that most people are like Mike. And, Mike writes back in and he says, hey, man, I listened to your podcast. Thank you, Mike. You pose some interesting arguments, even if they're hypothetical reasons to justify the shooting. The thing is that that's not it, though. What justifies the shooting is the law. The law justified that shooting. We have laws, and in Florida, it's a stand your ground state. That's why that guy was never charged and will never spend a night in jail, because of the law. It's not a hypothetical. That's the thing, is that that's the usefulness of the law, even when the law is wrong. Like in the case of cannabis still being illegal, and why aren't we making all of our paper out of hemp? It's because cannabis is against the law. I disagree with that law, but the fact is that that's the divining rod, if you will. That's the ruler. And so it's not a hypothetical, and the guy got shoved to the ground. And the reason and Mike, I'm grateful that you wrote back, because he wrote it, and let me do this justice here. He wrote it and he said, look, the whole Nazi thing that you keep talking about, I think it's much bigger in the media and social media with the loudmouths than it actually is in reality. Could not agree more. I absolutely agree with you, but I also agree that or believe that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So he says, I'll pose another possibility for the reason of the shooting. The guy feels more confident, because he's got a gun, so he's checking, a random stranger's car, which is the policeman's job. Totally agree. The guy wasn't minding his own business. The big guy came out, saw him shouting down his girl, shoved him to the ground. And then the guy's thinking like, oh, I've got this gun in my hand, so now I'm going to be more confident. And this guy just made me look stupid. Now I feel bad, so I'm going to pull my gun out. And so he says, let's back up a few seconds before the trigger was pulled. He said, you, Pete, would do anything to protect your family. You walk out of the store with a man in your wife's face, which is another, again, you're absolutely right. Right? Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, we have to have these discussions. And this is why this particular happenstance is like the perfect microcosm, because everybody was wrong. You know what I mean? Everyone was an asshole from start to finish, cover to cover, wall to wall. Everyone's an asshole in this situation. But it's the law that's the divining rod, and it's the law that is going to help us to get through. If this level of insanity gets any worse, and it very well could. What if we had another power outage? Right? Now, if you live in America, but particularly the Southwest, you may remember in 2011, there was a massive power outage that hit the entire Southwest, from Phoenix to San Diego to LA. That's over 25 million people. There's 20 million people in Los Angeles alone. That's more than Australia, or about the same as Australia. There's 4 million people in San Diego and 3 million people in Phoenix. That's almost 30 million people without power. Thank God it only lasted a day, because can you imagine if people, all of a sudden didn't have the ability to preserve their own food, and all of a sudden there was a run on water at Walmart and Target and Vons, and all of a sudden people start running out of the water, and all of a sudden you've got 25 million people, 30 million people that, their DNA awakens to their fight or flight mode, and all of a sudden people just start losing their minds. That's a very real possibility. Los Angeles doesn't have its own water supply. That's a problem. That happened in the second week of September, the hottest week of the year in Phoenix. It's not a stretch to think that people are going to lose their minds. And then all of a sudden you're going to have 30 million people that are in fight or flight mode. And fight or flight mode, by the way, is crazy. When you're in fight or flight mode, it's the same thing that used to keep cavemen safe from the saber-toothed tigers. It's the same thing that you would experience if you were out in the woods and came across a bear who was none too happy to see you. You would be in fight or flight mode, and that's where all of your adrenaline gets pushed into your bloodstream, and you become a different person. Steve Rinella talks about it. If you don't know who Steve Rinella is, you need to check out his podcast. But there is a very real possibility that all this craziness that we're seeing right now will not just be resolved amicably. Things could get much crazier, and I believe it's very realistic that they will. And we need to have the discussion. We need to talk to one another and argue with one another and throw out as many what ifs as we can, because again, it is the questions that elude us, not the answers. Einstein said that. The truth is whatever it is, right? The facts are whatever they are, and they don't depend on our opinions or our feelers or anything. It's the questions that elude us. And if we don't learn to ask questions like, how can I control my congresspeople to a greater extent? What am I going to do if everybody around me loses their minds and all of a sudden they're coming to my house to steal my water and my food and do damage to my family? You know what I mean? What do I have to do to make sure I'm not the crazy person who's looking at the car and checking their license plate and checking their rear view mirror to where I might find myself shouting down some lady and then getting my ass kicked, and then, oh, by the way, I've got a gun. You know what I mean? Like, how do we avoid us being the crazy person? You know what I mean? How do we ensure that we stay of sound mind? These are the points of this whole show. So I appreciate you guys chiming in on that conversation, and more to come, I hope, right? Mike, thank you for your thoughts. Thank you for the contrary opinion, so that I can look at your opinion and say, oh, okay, I didn't think of that. And then I get stronger and I get better, right? That's the whole point. Thank you for tuning in to today's show. Hope you enjoyed the interview, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.